period of a week or two prior to 9/11, but leaving in great haste. And the neighbors simply noticed that their neighbors had left, noticed that they were Saudi. Now, that could mean nothing at all, of course, but then when investigators were able to enter the house, they discovered that the family had fled in great haste, that they had, by evidenced by the fact that they had left almost all of their valuable belongings behind, as well as various perishable things, and just took off and left the United States, most of them never to return. That's not normal. Very few people leave their house with their cars in the driveway and fruit in a bowl and dirty diapers and all kinds of expensive clothing in the closets and furniture and everything, not arranging to do anything with the house or with the things, but just simply to grab a computer, leave a safe door hanging open, and disappear. And so it was clear that something had happened there. And further inquiries by the FBI revealed that this house had hosted at least two and possibly many more of the alleged 9/11 hijackers, that they had either visited or made phone calls to this house or to people who made phone calls to this house. And the FBI documented that in an internal report. And then what we see is the whole thing gets hushed up and it vanishes.
Amazing that they could bury that.
That's right. They buried it, and for 10 years we heard nothing about that until somehow it was leaked to journalists, and they then produced this very important story. And the story basically was that a Saudi family had fled, had connections to these 9/11 hijackers. The FBI investigated, discovered the connections, and then covered it up. Hugely important story. What we did at whowhatwhy.org, and I think a kind of a typical role for us often is to come in on a story and help deepen it, help expand it, take it to a whole new level. And so what we did was we looked at the family and we found out who they were, not just their names, but we found out how they fit into the Saudi firmament. And we discovered that there was a young couple living there with their small children, but that the owner of the house, who's the father of the woman and the father-in-law of the man living in the house, that he was a very important Saudi also living in the United States, and that he was directly linked in with one of the most powerful princes of the royal family. More specifically, this man by the name of Essam Ghazawi, the owner of this house where these hijackers were coming to, was the CEO of an important Saudi company, and the chairman of that Saudi company was Prince Sultan, one of the most powerful members of the Saudi royal family, and, if you will, the point man for aviation. And this is very important because, of course, the hijackers came to Florida to learn how to fly, and what we discovered was that Prince Sultan had come to Florida to learn how to fly long before these people came, and that he had been sort of kind of the chief proponent of Saudis coming to Florida to fly. He'd gone on to become the head of one of the major international airports there and of aviation in Saudi Arabia. Very significant man. And this guy is the direct boss of the man whose house was supposedly hosting these flying students who turned into, allegedly, the 9/11 hijackers. So it's a tremendously important story. It's a long one. It's on whowhatwhy.org right now. I think it's found on the front page. I realized, going back and reading it, how incredibly complex and dense it is, and we're thinking of re-editing it so that some of the dozens and dozens of major points in there can stand out better. One of them,
sure,
I think you'll find fascinating, is that a whole bunch of princes related to this Prince Sultan themselves died right around 9/11. They were in their 40s, and they died mysterious deaths.
One died of thirst, I understand.
Yeah, one died of thirst, one died of a heart attack, one died in a dentist's chair, one died on the way to driving to the funeral of one of the others. It's astonishing. I mean, in any other situation, people hearing 3 or 4 examples like that would say, well, my gosh, there's something obviously going on. If it was a fictional a TV movie or something, everybody'd be talking about it. And yes, this whole thing has had no national or international discussion. And then we see Prince Sultan who comes out not only totally okay, but his father, with whom he obviously is close, the last several years when the king of Saudi Arabia dies, it is his father, Prince Salman, who then becomes and is now the king of Saudi Arabia. And so this particular faction of the Saudi royal family that is linked to the Osama bin Laden crew are now running Saudi Arabia. And that is just a huge story. There's no way to underestimate it.
That's amazing. We've heard about this shakeup in the succession over there in Saudi Arabia, but I was quite startled to see that this does link into this whole Sarasota, Florida episode.
That's right. And then we find, of course, that, there were several of these so-called 9/11 investigative commissions, some of them not particularly vigorous. One of the better ones was the Joint Congressional Inquiry. One of the heads of that was chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, former Florida Governor Bob Graham. And Senator Graham, now retired, even back then, their report had a section starting to become a little bit famous called the 28 pages. 28
Right.
pages of their report was about Saudi Arabia, and it was redacted, and they were prevented from releasing it. To this day, they're not allowed to release it, and Graham's been out there pushing, as a retiree, pushing for those things to be released. And what's amazing is, the Bush administration are the ones who classified it, wouldn't allow it to be released, and now the Obama administration, almost 2 terms under Obama, and they continue to block this thing. And I think one can put 2 and 2 together and realize that that report did implicate. We can even tell that from Graham's statements, that it did implicate the Saudi royal family somehow in the attacks on the United States, but that somebody at a high level is making a decision that they cannot allow this information to come out. And I think this again comes under the heading of so-called national security, the need to maintain the Saudis in power as a so-called friend of the United States in the Middle East, the need to maintain, to keep the fossil fuels flowing and so forth. And they have decided that there will be too much chaos if this story is allowed to break.
Well, I got to say, when you are attacked by your allies, it should be news, Russ. But I just want to do one little aside that I thought was fascinating, that kind of that speaks to what you're up against. That piece that you excerpted by Michael Springman, Visas for Al Qaeda, CIA handouts that rock the world. It kind of mentioned in passing a fellow who was involved in some of this activity, Milt Bearden of the CIA. Did some research and noted that he's apparently now a consultant to Hollywood when they're telling tales about the CIA on film. He helped George Cryle write Charlie Wilson's War, which was an entertaining film, but of course left out some rather key aspects of the so-called secret war in Afghanistan. I just want to note that when the Milt Beardens of the world are helping the media cover the news, we got problems.
Yes, and you bring up an important point, Doug, and that is that entities like the CIA and their counterparts in other countries have always understood the importance of propaganda. And you see that they have sections or departments and specialists in propaganda that disseminating information in a favorable way is a key component. It's every bit as important as bribing union leaders and having spies and doing sabotage and all other kind of intrigues. This sort of thing has always been considered to be of paramount importance, because if you can guide the public in the direction you want them to go and you can keep them in the dark from what is really happening, then you hold an awful lot of power over them. And so Hollywood has been targeted, I'm sure, from the going all the way back through as long as there's been a Hollywood, by the so-called military-industrial complex. It's always been targeted to get out stories that shape people's perceptions in a certain way. And that you bring up a very important point, which is that we need to have much more of an effort to even understand how the narratives that influence us are created. And it's not just Hollywood. It's the same thing holds true with the world of the media, news media. It holds true with publishing in general. It holds true with academia. All the different forms of storytelling. We now see a big CIA presence in Silicon Valley, where there's a tremendous amount of interest of getting people into all of these tech companies because of the role that those tech companies now play in shaping our understanding of how things work.
Good God. Russ, you spent a lot of time on who, what, why, outlining these links between the CIA, the Saudi royals, fundamentalist groups like Al-Qaeda, and now ISIS. Anyone who's trying to sort this out from the headline news is going to get confused. You've gone a long way to unraveling some of these links, but I know this is a question that could probably take a half hour to answer, but I would just say, what do you think is the most important aspects about this story that the public needs to keep in mind?
Well, when you say story, if you're talking about this sort of meta story that I articulated at the beginning, I would say it is this. The world is not so much this complicated, chaotic place that we fear. And by the way, our fear and our sort of being overwhelmed by all the bad news and all of these things that just seem to come out of nowhere and seem to threaten us and make us stick our heads in the sand. The reason we anesthetize ourselves so much with so much television, spectator sports, alcohol and drugs and fantasy content and so forth, on and on and on, is because it's a psychological and a physiological reaction to the stuff that is hitting us. But once you begin to seek a coherent understanding and you see that there is actually logic, rationality, predictability, structure, patterns behind these things, you begin to, in a strange way, sort of almost kind of calm down. You're better able to focus. You realize who's pulling the wool over our eyes. You realize who might not pull the wool over our eyes, what needs to be done, and so forth. The secret to fixing things and to creating a better society and a better country, better policy, electing better leaders, and regaining control over our lives individually and cumulatively is knowledge and awareness. And it really comes from finding the time to study these things and to seek out the unfortunately limited sources for a good analysis.
Well, Russ, in closing, I want people, if they haven't ever done so so far, to go to your website, whowhatwhy.org, and start maybe with the article you wrote, Who Caused Europe's Refugee Mess? Why We Did. I think people are interested in this. And I want to give you a chance, too, to ask for help on your site, which is independent and uncensored, because it is supported by readers.
Thank you very much. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We don't even take ads. That means that every penny that keeps us going comes from readers and listeners, and we're very grateful for any tax-deductible donations that come our way. We also rely a lot on volunteers, although we do try to pay our writers and our core editors. And we welcome people with skills in any of a huge number of different areas that any kind of organization might need. We'd love to hear from them, and all the contact information can be found on our homepage at whowhatwhy.org, as can information about following us on Twitter, Facebook, and other platforms.
We've been speaking with investigative journalist Russ Baker, founder of whowhatwhy.org. We encourage everyone to go to the site and offer all the support that one can. Russ, we've only scratched the surface of what valuable information you've posted and what we could talk about, but I hope you'll keep up the good work, and I hope you'll come again, because you're always welcome on this program.
Well, I appreciate it. Good luck to you too, Doug, and let's stay in touch.
Very good.